Welcome back to Primary Source China Investment. This week we're on show K7. And despite all of the news about the election, I thought we'd focus on one area of that election, which is trade, specifically China's Trump trade. As we like to say on this channel, we talk about what's actually happening. We tend to keep speculation to a minimum, and giving the one period lagged re-election of DJ Trump, we'd like to focus on what's been happening with trade since the initial Trump tariffs almost 7 years ago. If American and European manufacturers didn't get the hint, and the COVID pandemic and the collapse of the supply chain, that was the second shock. Many firms did get the message and sharpened their pencils to upend their manufacturing and distribution. Others went about stripping off their China business, and still others did nothing. Well, Trump 2.0 is here, and we're pretty certain what that will mean. And for all the talk about, oh, Trump is unpredictable, oh, he's transactional, there is a simple decision matrix for Trump. Is it good for the US? There are no sacred cows. Is the UN a net benefit for the US? Well, in Trump's eyes, probably not. How about NATO? Again, probably not currently. B, does it hurt Trump? He has no compunction about looking silly. Hell, he relishes it. He's not afraid to sell gaudy shoes or coins or watches. But does it hurt his interests? That's the deeper question. C, can he get others to pay? See NATO, the UN, Taiwan, the Mexican wall. And D, can he claim victory? Tax cut, North Korea, the stock market. So all of these policy issues have to be looked in that decision matrix. So what does it mean for trade? And the headlines are all about tariffs. But tariffs are the proverbial stick. The carrot is bringing manufacturing back to the US. And if we look, manufacturing in the US did or is turning around as measured by orders and jobs. But the next trick is efficiency. So Pengwo, what's your thoughts about all of that? Do you agree with some of this, or do you disagree? Or am I crazy?
think, firstly, that's from the United States perspective. So no matter what they are doing, right? Trade war or no trade or cooperation conflicts, is that a benefit to the United States? And the second question is that a benefit for a small group or small group of people, or for most of the Americans? The answer is no. So they are not the same things. So it really depends which standpoint you are trying to talk about. And secondly, from China perspective, so let's see the number. So as we know, Trump started the trade war in 2019. So and China export reached 2.5 trillion in 2019. 2020, 2.6 trillion. 2021, 3.3 trillion. 2022, 3.5 trillion. 2023, 3.4 trillion. And 2024, the first 6 months grows the 6.9%. So that's the fact, and that's the number, and with the global recession. So that's from this number perspective. Is that really benefit for the United States, or is that really a win or lose? So if you lose, why do you start it? So that's obviously people already see that that's very hot topic for the chip war. And right now, we all see the result. Is that really United States win, or is that really lose the China big market? So they have to balance it. And I'm pretty sure most people already think about it and prepare to get the higher traffic after Trump get the election.
The winners and the losers. It's interesting how we can frame that. Has China's exports decreased? Absolutely not. Has China's imports decreased? Absolutely. So China is doing two things. They're continuing to export, but they're importing less. So this is the Xi Jinping model, the export model. For all the talk about changing that model is not changing. And we have to look at what China's exports are to the US. China's exports to the US, only about 15% of China's exports are to the US. But the list of announced decreases in China manufacturing and outright exits is long and distinguished. Apple, Samsung, VW, Dell, Levi's, Whirlpool, 3M, on and on and on. And just after the election, Steve Madden dropped this headline. Some of this, though, and this is the point where you're alluding to earlier, that's from the US perspective. From the China perspective, China is wildly competitive. So China makes washing machines. They don't need Whirlpool to make washing machines. China makes PCs and laptops and shoes and on and on and on. So you're looking at a very competitive industry on the ground, specifically the auto industry, right? We've talked about it a lot. What's China been doing? And we've covered this plenty. Struggled with their own recession, slowdown, or consumer lethargy. We can compare, is it good or bad? But, the U.S. economy doing pretty good. And what they do is they hit the export button. So what I was mentioning earlier, you can see the chart here. And just recently, the most recent uptick, exports have jumped more this past quarter than in the past 2 years. So they are continuing to export. And you can also see that the imports have been declining as well. So in other words, take our stuff. We don't want your stuff. We have enough of our stuff, and consumers are balking. Given the deflation, China needs to ship more and more volume to get the same value. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think people really just get limited for the trade for on the physical product. Is that the United States do nothing? Obviously not. I think from one opinion, that is the United States really export currency.
Oh,
So
yeah.
why they export the currency? Because that is the lowest cost and the most profitable. So because of the United States export the currency, they have no incentive to export the physical product outside. And that's all of this is much more expensive and much higher cost than export the currency. I think right now, if bring the manufacturing back to the United States, just against the economy's rules, and also make it conflict with the exported currency. So I don't know how they get traded the balance, or they have to choose one of them rather than both. Obviously, Trump definitely I want everything, but in fact, that is. Nobody want to give up export the currency, but you cannot maybe export the physical product at the same time. A good example, like the 15th century's Spain. So they get a huge tons of the currency, which is gold and silver, and that is the cost all the expense, all the manufacturing costs much more expensive in Spain, and which cost their industry product get a much lower competitive in the market. So I don't know the answer. That is, we have. I think maybe a lot of a discussion talk about the Trump because they already done that, and also I think people maybe get ready for the next wave.
Trump is headline driven, right? He's a
Yes.
marketing genius. So what he's going to look at is manufacturing jobs. Did I bring manufacturing jobs back? And he's looking at the US consumer is the biggest consumer on the planet. So why do I have to import items that consumers buy? I can just force US companies to make them here and we can buy US. It's sort of the mirror image of China. China has a lot of manufacturing. Why don't you have Chinese consumers consume manufacturing from China? And I think even before Trump 2.0, Europe and Latin America are already starting to push back on China's massive exporting, right? They're all talking about tariffs, maybe not as big as Trump is talking about it, but Trump likes to tout these kind of wins. And I think it's going to be much harder to find win-win scenarios here for, she likes to talk about win-win scenarios. I think it's going to be a little bit challenging to find win-win scenarios. I'm not saying it's all going to work, and
That's right. And the United States, they have so many big international companies, so many smart people. If they want to bring the manufacturer back, they already done it 20 years ago. Why they don't do that? obviously they have some strong motivation not do
Yeah,
it.
there's also has to be incentive, right? Because there were
Yeah,
so many incentives to go overseas. Now you have to bring those incentives here. If you get on an airplane and fly in the US, there's a lot of space in America. There's plenty of places. It's just we had no incentive to keep manufacturing in the US because it was so much easier and a lot of incentives in China or in other places in Southeast Asia or in India or something like that. So if the US wants to just beat people up and say, hey, you have to manufacture in the US, they're going to say, okay, give me land, give me property, plant, and equipment, give me loans, give me tax free. I mean, there has to be other incentives. And I'm not saying all that's going to happen, but that's the table that's being set right now. We're going to leave it here for show K7. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
thank you.